Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of Unpopular Opinion. I'm your host, Mika Gatt, joined alongside my weekly panelists of Ayush and Kyle Pucci. And this week, we are very, very fortunate to be joined by ABC sports analyst Josh Brogadir. Thank you so much for coming on today, Josh.
You're very welcome. And I realize it says Sophie Brogadir next to my name. That is my 11-year-old daughter, but hopefully I'm channeling her energy, her 11-year-old energy with this. So that I'll hang with you guys.
Definitely need to have some good energy for today. We're going to be talking a lot about in-depth sports, a lot of big games coming up this week, and a little bit about basketball as well.
Very good.
So let's start off with the conference championship game that's going to be played at 6:40 this Sunday. The Buffalo Bills against Kansas City, that they actually played in the championship game 27 years ago, and then 27 years before that. So maybe it's a 27-year thing. And right now it's Kansas City obviously won the first one. Buffalo obviously won the second one. The question is, who's going to get that tiebreaker? Who's going on to the Super Bowl? Let's start off with Ayush. What do you think, Ayush?
Mahomes has been recently cleared to play Sunday, and Buffalo's offense against Baltimore looked less than their usual self. And Mahomes with that offense, I think their defense is playing well. I don't think Bills will be able to score more than maybe 20 points against them. I think Kansas City will win this by double digits.
Kyle, what do you think?
Classic. You hate the Bills, so you're so biased against them. But I am with you though. I'm going to pick the Chiefs because I just don't want to bet against Pat Mahomes in Kansas City, and I mean they have too many weapons. But also, Ayush, in response to you, the Bills played a much better defense in the Ravens than the Chiefs have. So the Bills pull this out. Won't be surprised. I think Josh Allen has played better than Pat Mahomes this year, in my opinion, on a week-to-week basis, especially with less. I mean, I know he has Stephon Diggs. It's not like he's throwing to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and who honestly may have an argument for one of the greatest tight ends ever. And I'm going to go the Chiefs 28-24.
Well, Josh, what do you think?
Well, so I don't think it's going to be that close of a game, as Kyle was just saying. I always root for close games. I got to tell you guys, even if I have no dog in the fight, whether I do or I don't, I think it's just more interesting football or any sport for that matter if it's a close game. Having said that, I just think Mahomes has too much. I think he has too many weapons, and I don't think that Allen is – I personally don't think that he's ready for this exact game. And even though he's played well all year long and he's proved his doubters wrong, myself included, I see this more as a 34-20 Chiefs win.
Okay, well, I don't know this is your first time on the show, but I've been known here to take a lot of bold presumptions and a lot of bold ideas on the show, and I obviously try to back it up, so I'll start it off now. So first off, in this Browns-Chiefs game last week, the stadium, I think, was 48% Browns fans, 52% Chiefs fans. There is no way it's going to look any different with Buffalo in town. Those fans travel just as well as Cleveland. They're going to be in Kansas City. It's going to be packed. It's going to be pretty balanced in terms of crowd noise for both teams. That being said, Pat Mahomes is cleared, but I don't know if he's going to be at 100% coming off of a pretty major concussion that, limited him a little bit in terms of walking. And especially if Buffalo knows to slow him down a little bit, maybe they're not trying to do what the Saints did a couple of years ago, not trying to target people and injure them. But at the same time, I think that Buffalo just has a better story. And sometimes, although Mahomes and the Chiefs have been playing incredibly well, before last week's Cleveland game, the last game that they really tried in was the Falcons game where they needed a miraculous 30-yard miss by Younghoe Koo to win the game by 3 points. The Chiefs have been playing really well this year, but as of late, they haven't, the Browns beat the Steelers, but that was, again, 17 years. It was a destiny game. The Browns had to go into Pittsburgh. It was their arch rival. They weren't going to do anything against Kansas City. Buffalo, I just think, is a different team. They just I think they might do damage. And I think this game does go to overtime because I love close games. I really love close games. And I think the Bills sneak it in by a field goal. What do you guys think?
Well, I just think it depends how well the Bills defense plays. If Josh Allen can control the ball, and keep Mahomes off. I mean, I have no doubt the Bills are going to put up points in this game, but it's going to be a matter of fact if Mahomes gets too many possessions, like even if your defense is stopping him, like if you give him too many opportunities, at some point he's going to score. And you saw that in the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago against New England when I believe Pats did. They held him scoreless in the half, and Brady threw a duel of interceptions. I mean, one of the one right off Edelman's hands. As soon as you give Pat Mahomes more opportunities, it's going to make you pay for it. And I don't want to bet against him in Kansas City because he just looks like so early in his career. He was ready for that moment, I think, in his first year, while Josh said that he doesn't know if Josh Allen is ready for that moment yet. And I mean, even though he's been great in the regular season, he really hasn't been that good in the playoffs. I thought he was okay against the Colts. Last week against the Ravens, if Lamar Jackson doesn't throw that 100-yard pick six, could have been a different game maybe. So who knows what would have happened to the Browns if Mahomes doesn't get injured in that game. So but I won't be surprised if Buffalo pulls it out because they've been that good all year.
Absolutely. Josh, what do you think? I mean, between the Buffalo, Kansas, I think the Buffalo definitely has a better defense than Cleveland did last week. There's no argument about that. But I don't know if it's going to.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think the Chiefs have a better defense than the Bills do right now. I really do. I think that's just the kind of – I really do. I think that's the kind of defense that can step up in big games. And I look at them having – it looks like they're going to get everybody healthy. That was a big question for me this week, not just Mahomes, but also just to make sure some of their other pieces were going to be back. And, it looks like they're going to have a full complement on D and offense. And so that's, I think, one of the main reasons that I'm leaning more heavily to the Chiefs than I would have been. You're right about the Browns, by the way. And the Browns had every opportunity to pull that game out. And especially when Mahomes goes down, it really did look like Mayfield was going to do something there. And then obviously we know the end of the game what really happened. And the Chiefs being able to pull it out with Henny with a little magic. But I guess I just don't have confidence that the Bills can keep this close in a track meet type game.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Henny third and 15 that he just, the Bills, not the Bills, the Browns just decided to leave the entire middle of the field wide open. So he just scrambled down.
That's just something that can't happen in that
scenario.
scenario.
Expecting Henny to scramble out of the pocket. I mean, he's not a mobile quarterback. And I also think Josh Allen's going to have a couple costly turnovers in the championship game, which is going to cost Buffalo.
Well, I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's – I disagree when you say it's going to be a double-digit win. I don't think it's going to be by either team a double-digit win. I just think these two teams – these are the two best teams in the AFC for a reason. I really can't see any two other teams in the AFC that should have been in this championship game except for those two
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think these are the two best teams in the AFC, and one of them is going to be taking home the Lamar Hunt Trophy, and, I mean, let the best team win pretty much. It's simple as that. Well – the winner of this Buffalo versus Kansas City game is going to be going on to play the winner of the NFC Championship game that's going to be taking place earlier in that day between the Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Mr. Tom Brady. So I want to hear the opinions for the NFC Championship game. Let's switch up the order a little bit. Let's start off with Josh.
All right, so it's really hard to pick against Brady, and I certainly didn't last week. I thought that they'd beat the Saints. I had them winning by about 10 points, and I really honestly think this week is the first time in a long time that I've had to think a little bit more about it. Just because I think the Packers are on what I would describe as a really solid roll, and they've been getting better the last couple of weeks. I think personally that Aaron Rodgers is ready to beat Tom Brady. I did not originally come into this conversation. If we had had a call 3 days ago, guys, I think I might have been taking the Bradys. But at this point, I think I'm ready to take the Pack. I think they have a little bit more of a complete team, and I'm just not so sure that there's not going to be something that's going to go wrong with the Bucs. By the way, the Bucs have already gone to a point where I did not anticipate they'd go to. I want to say that right away. I did not think Brady was going to lead this team to the NFC Championship game. So to me, this is a little bit of gravy for them. But going into that spot in Lambeau, it's supposed to be a very cold day. We know Brady can play in that. We know Gronk can play in that. I'm just not so sure the rest of their teammates are ready for that.
Absolutely, yeah. But I'll save my opinions till the end. Let's go over to Ayush. Ayush, what do you think?
I think, as Josh said, the Packers are a more complete team. Honestly, I think Brady and Gronk are the X factor because Brady's going to go to Gronk when it matters most because he trusts him the most out of anyone in the Bucs. And if that duo can get clicking, then the Packers might be in trouble, but that's not going to be very likely because Gronk is nowhere near where he was with New England. And if Brady can't trust Gronk, I think Packers will win this game.
Kyle, go ahead.
All right. Well, the amount of times I've bet against Tom Brady and he's made me pay for it, I am not making that mistake anymore. And I'm gonna take the Tampa Bay Gronkaneers as I always wear. This is stuff that Brady lives for. You know, the amount of like miraculous stories he's pulled off in his career. You know, nobody thought he could go to Kansas City a couple of years ago, go beat the Chiefs, and they were red hot. And you know, speaking of Gronk not making those last week, you know, the Bucks had a couple of drop passes. You know, Godwin at the end of the half, I thought Gronk should have had 2 catches too. You know, all of a sudden, like, they make those 3 catches. I think that's a whole different game. The Bucks maybe pull them out. Now, I think Drew Brees sucks, and that it was mainly his fault. Drew Brees kind of handed them the game, but I also thought Tampa really played good defense, and I think Scotty Miller is going to be my sleeper in this game. Now that Antonio Brown is not playing, you know, early in the year before they got him, Scotty Miller was getting a lot of targets, made a lot of plays, and he just fell out of the rotation when Antonio Brown showed up. And, you know, as Mika pointed out to me earlier, I know they don't have Brown, but Packers also don't have Kevin King. Of course, they have Jair Alexander. He's not going to be able to guard the entire Bucks offense. And I believe Tampa's defense right now is better than Green Bay's. So, and I also think that it's going to be a close game in the fourth quarter. And I think Brady is going to make the play and Rodgers is not going to make the play that matters. So I'm going Tampa. We, the Bradyites, are going to go to the Super Bowl.
All right, well, I'm obviously going to have a rebuttal. I think it's pretty obvious who I'm going to pick. I mean, I'm decked out in Packers gear. I have the background behind me. It's pretty obvious I'm going to pick my Packers. But I have I'm obviously going to bring a couple of reasons into this. First of all, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going into the postseason, especially the last couple games of the regular season, they look like a different team. They really looked like a different team for one specific reason. It's because the Tom Brady to Antonio Brown chemistry was absolutely unstoppable. Because you take away Mike Evans, he's their number 1 receiver, biggest red zone threat easily. He's huge. He's going to get physical. He's going to find a way to get open. And then Chris Godwin is the slot receiver. But Antonio Brown became that number 3 option for Brady that he used so often in New England and he loved so much. And then he used it in Tampa. Well, guess what? Yeah, he's not going to be playing this week in Green Bay. So we're going back to the same Buccaneers versus Packers team that they faced in week 5. And by the way, that game was a 10-38 blowout by the Buccaneers over the Packers. And I'll tell you right now why it's not going to be repeated. First of all, in that game, Aaron Rodgers threw his, I think it was fourth career pick 6. That's just the stat that's incredible. He has 4 career pick 6s because he does not give up on a play even when he throws an interception. Then he went on and threw another interception. But that again was easily the worst ever Packer. There was the worst game of Rodgers this season for sure. And he's going to win MVP 90%, a little 99%. He's going to be the league MVP. But I think that this time it's in Green Bay. And also in that game, they lost David Bakhtiari in the first quarter, and they had to scramble to find a good offensive line to readjust to the really, really good Tampa Bay pass rush. This week, Bakhtiari has been gone since before the Week 17 game against the Bears, and the Packers O-line, they stopped Aaron Donald. They put Elton Jenkins on the defensive player of the year one-on-one. He was 50%. I know he's 50%.
Okay, Aaron Donald had 8 broken ribs. Let's not act like he was.
You just called Drew Brees sucks, and he played through 11 broken ribs and a punctured lung.
Yeah,
okay, and how did he play in that game? He was terrible.
Okay, same with Aaron Donald.
Well, it's different. Right, Aaron Donald's like smashing into linemen trying to get by, and like Drew Brees is he never throws it more than 10 yards to begin with. Like,
think about just the body buildup. One of them is just Aaron Donald, who looks like a superhero, and then there's Drew Brees, who looks like the girl that you save in the superhero movies. So 2 different types of buildups in terms of physique. But let me just finish. So first of all, I really like what Josh said about the weather. And absolutely, Brady and Gronkowski, that's their hometown. They know Foxborough. They're going to do fine. But I don't know what to think of this Tampa Bay defense. They don't know the snow really well. They practice when it's 75 degrees outside. And it's supposed to be definitely freezing, like 26 degrees. And it's supposed to snow, but it's not 100% sure. And again, I think it's going to be a close game. But again, the Packers against the Rams, who were the number one defense in football, scored on every single drive in the first half. And then, I mean, they continued to pour it on. That Matt LaFleur is putting up so many different schemes that really no team knows what to do. They're either going to go with the run, then they're going to get play action off of it. They're either going to pass it to Devontae. Aaron Rodgers was able to make weapons when the Packers didn't want to provide him with weapons. So I really think the same with Buffalo. I'm picking the Packers and Buffalo for the biggest reason. They are the teams that are destined to be in this game. They are the two storied teams that from the beginning of the season were destined to be in the Super Bowl.
I disagree with just about everything you said. I mean, first of all, Antonio Brown is a big loss, but I mean, they have a good rookie receiver in Johnson. Scotty Miller's there. There's chemistry. Johnson had that insane catch against the Saints where it was like a back shoulder away from his body catch. I think he trusts those guys. I don't think Brown will hurt in the special teams where he can't return punts more than the offense. And yeah, the defense hasn't proven that they can play in cold weather yet, so that could be a question. But if they can stop the run and take away the play action pass from the Green Bay offense, that offense just lost one of its biggest tools. It's going to force Rodgers just to beat them straight out. And Rodgers had maybe 23 of his 48 touchdown passes off play action this year. So if they can shut down the play action and run game, the Bucs should have a really good chance of winning this.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to what Ayush said that I know the Packers, as Mika's preached all year long, are not very good against the run when it comes to stopping it, obviously. And that Tampa's definitely got a good running game. They're not saying they're top. I'm not saying they're Derrick Henry worthy, but both of those guys are capable of making a lot of noise. And when the Packers don't stop the run, it really is going to hurt in the playoffs when you can't stop the run, especially if you can take, like Ayush said, take the play action away from Rodgers. And, Tampa also number one defense throughout the whole year. It's stopping the run. So all of a sudden, if Aaron Jones and those guys become a non-factor, it's gonna be tough to stop. And I just at some point, I think we can all agree that Rodgers really only throws to Devontae Adams. I hate to say it. No, but you should be agreeing. He loves to throw to Devontae Adams. And I think that a receiver and a quarterback tandem just only goes so far. And I just think that once they double cover Adams, hopefully, if Bruce Arians actually knows how to win this game, hopefully double covers Adams and then there go me and the Brady Bobos ship off back to Tampa.
Josh,
you brought up a very good point, though, Kyle, right there when you were talking about Bruce Arians. I mean, that's got to concern the folks in Tampa, the Tampa faithful, that he can actually get this done.
Oh, it definitely does.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm on Team Mika here, and I'll tell you why I am. I'm not going to put the Packers' background behind me right now because I'm not as confident as him. Clearly, I'm not a fan, so that's another factor, too. But I want to go back to one thing that he said because I think that's really a great tell, and that is the early in the game season and the fact that the Packers really didn't have anything in that game. But just consider what happened with the Saints and the Bucs in the early season games. I mean, the Bucs really got pushed around in both of those regular season games, and then they held their own in the playoffs. And even though that regular season can sometimes be an indicator and can certainly help coaches get ready and get their team set, it's not everything. And especially when teams are not ready for the big moment, and I don't think the Saints really were last week, that's the concern I might have, especially with the Packers at home at Lambeau. I mean, you cannot, and I realize this is during the pandemic, it's not the huge crowd that we would expect in the Lambeau Leap and all that stuff, but I don't think you can rule it out completely. Some of it's weather, some of it's comfort, some of it's travel, and also a lot of it for these Bucs players, Gronk and Brady notwithstanding, now that Brown's out, there's not a whole lot of playoff experience with this team. They haven't really done a whole lot. And I think you can look at Rodgers over the years. He certainly has been there, and obviously he's looking for his second Super Bowl title.
No, I'm gonna add on to what. Let me just add on to what Josh said.
Exactly. Preach.
Fair enough.
Well, I'll take it. The Packers they were in the NFC Championship game last year, but they were playing a team that was the best defense in football, and Rodgers doesn't play great against.
Yeah, you also let up 4 touchdowns to Raheem Mostert. That was great.
But this year, by the way, I wanted to bring up another fact that the past 4 games, a player named Rashawn Gary, who the Packers selected last year, 2 years ago, as the 12th overall pick from Michigan, he has stepped up huge on that pass on the defensive line. So Kenny Clark, the Smith brothers, and Rashawn Gary make it much, much more difficult for an offensive line to be able to create any type of protection. With the rookie linebacker, number 51, Chris Barnes, he's also been playing really well. Very unappreciated linebacker. Him and what's his name? The number 58. I'm blanking on his name right now. I'll get back to his name. But the linebacking core as of late has been playing much better. But I want to just get a couple reasons, a couple more things. Even Tom Brady in these playoffs hasn't been playing that great. If you think about it, first game against the Washington football team, this was a team that shouldn't have even been in the playoffs to start off with. They won by 5 points to a quarterback that was John Wolford, but this quarterback, Heineke, I mean, the entire team was celebrating the fact that he was able to complete a pass.
Okay, so how is that Brady's fault? Since you said he's not, you just said Brady wasn't that good.
I said he won by 5 points.
How was that his? Brady was great in that game. If Brady doesn't play that good, they don't win that game. If Brady doesn't throw for 390 and 3 touchdowns.
I'm just saying, last week against New Orleans, the Saints had 4 turnovers, which is just unheard of in the playoffs. 4 turnovers inside their half of the field. I could give you probably more than half of the quarterbacks in the National Football League that can score if they have the ball inside their own 40-yard line 4 times. It really is not a difficult thing to do, especially against a defense that has the Saints defense that had to come on time and time and time again and didn't have any breaks and didn't have any rest. And obviously that's going to be the key for the Packers. Keep Brady on the sideline because Gronk has been playing like a shell of himself recently. He is not the Gronk that we're used to from New England. He's the Gronk that's enjoying retirement life in Florida. That's the Gronk that we're used to right now. That team is run by the receivers. Like you said, the Scotty Miller, the Mike Evans, and the Chris Godwin. Yeah, but even in week 5 when they met and it was a blowout, Mike Evans' stat line, I think it was 5 targets or 6 targets, 0 catches, 0 yards. Why? He was playing on Jair Alexander, who I have my opinions about Jair Alexander. I think he's the best cornerback in the league, but I'm not going to
it's such a bobo.
I'm not going to sit, but that's not the argument. I'm not trying to argue that. That's not what the argument is. I'm just trying to tell you that I don't think the Bucs are ready for this. Josh made a very, very good point. The Bucs, this is their first championship game since 2003. And that was, that was a destined Super Bowl because Gruden was going to go play his former team and he was going to beat him. That was destiny. It was going to happen regardless. I think Brady did a lot and he should be proud of everything that's happened in Tampa Bay. But I think Rodgers has been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. This is his first NFC championship game at home. First in his incredible career.
I would like to respond to you, Mika, because I completely disagree with what you say as usual.
I do agree with Mika as well.
So when it comes to Tampa, yeah, they got a lot of young players. Guess who they have as their quarterback? They got Tom Brady. All right, they look they look much more bought in than the team that they were at the beginning of the year. Brady usually is such a big, not just for what he does on the field, but he's also the locker room presence. He's the whole leadership on that team. He's teaching these guys how to win. Bruce Arians even said last week, sometimes I don't even coach. I let Tom coach. Those are his words, not mine.
That was
Brady.
Disgraceful.
Yeah, it was disgraceful. But when it comes to Brady really teaching these guys how to win, then it's going to help them a lot. Mika, when it comes to the Packers pass rush getting pressure, you better hope you get pressure up the middle. You know why? Because guess what Brady does to edge rushers? Guess how he avoids the sacks? Steps up in the pocket. All right. If I see Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith rushing off the edge, I'm not going to be worried one bit. You know why? Because Brady's going to step up in the pocket. He's going to throw the ball. And it's just honestly hilarious how all these teams just do not understand how to get, even though he's done the same thing for 20 years of his career. You watch the Washington football team and Chase Young, here he comes rushing off the edge. Oh, Brady takes one step up. Then you got Cameron Jordan on the Saints. Oh, one step up in the puck. Yep, avoided, non-factor. Yeah, like Josh, earlier as we talked about that, I think it's a major coaching disadvantage of Matt LaFleur versus Bruce Arians. Not saying Matt LaFleur is Bill Belichick or anything, but he's certainly way better than Bruce Arians is. And people will say that, oh, Bruce Arians, he took the Cardinals to an NFC Championship game. That team was a wagon. Look at the team. You look at the players they had on that team. That team was absolutely loaded with talent. Yeah,
let me jump in there. They lost the Packers in that overtime game against.
The Packers weren't even good that year. You got lucky.
You
You got
always
two lucky passes from the end zone, like 60 yards down.
You always have a chance with Aaron Rodgers.
Stop it. He just closed his eyes and chucked it 60 yards downfield and somehow pulled it off. And that just, no, it wasn't skip. No, it just wasn't lucky. That's what it was. And, I mean, then they did lose by 35 points to the Panthers in the NFC Championship game. But that's not the point. Like, Brady teaching these guys how to win is going to be a huge factor. And I also just do not trust the Packers. That's probably 50% of this whole thing. I just don't trust Green Bay too much. The amount of times they've been in this situation where they go to the NFC Championship game, they've been red hot, and they just blow it like every time. Hate to make it. You're probably going to cry when I remind you of this. But, one point when the Falcons were playing Green Bay, I think they were up, 38-0 at some point. Then you allow 4 touchdowns to Raheem Mostert. It's just, I just don't trust the Packers that much in this scenario, even though they're at home, which is completely different. It's just the amount of times this has happened and they just blow it. Brady doesn't blow playoff games usually. So
that season where the Packers played the Falcons in the playoffs, first of all, the week before they played the 13-3 Dallas Cowboys, where they needed a miraculous toe drag catch from Jared Cook, followed by.
Okay, speaking of no playoff experience, you had the rookie Cowboys all over the place with Dak and Z. Oh, plus you almost blew a 18-point lead in that game too.
Yeah, but that was Mike McCarthy. Look how he's doing right now in Dallas.
Well, yeah. Mike McCarthy's a terrible head coach. It adds to Aaron Rodgers' legacy that he actually won a Super Bowl with that guy. But that's not the point.
If Aaron Rodgers, Bill Belichick, but that's not the argument we're going to do. So, Ayush, what did you want to say? You went on to disagree also.
Oh, I mean, first of all, Gronk is going to be a huge factor, not just in the passing game, the rushing game, and the pass blocking game too. I mean, against Washington, he was blocking Chase Young one-on-one. I think he might be the only tight end in NFL history you could trust against a guy like even Chase Young to just block one-on-one. And he's basically an extra offensive tackle out there. And if the Bucs play action game might be a bigger factor than the Packers play action game this week if they can get the run game going.
Good factor. I just want to jump in and tell you that it's Christian Kirksey, by the way. I looked it up.
I knew that. It just slipped my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I figured. But you're right about it. There are a lot of complementary parts on that defense. I don't know. This is to me, this is a 31-27 Packers win. That's about the number where I think we're going to see some offense from both teams, and it may very well be. I don't know if it's going to be a Rodgers miracle throw, but it may be a minute and a half left on the clock, and they get the ball last, and can they get in there? So it may be that kind of a game.
We can all agree that this game's going to be more enjoyable than the game.
It's definitely going to be a high-scoring game, but
yeah,
Mika, your fate depends on Mike Pettin, because if he plays zone coverage against Tom Brady, they're going to get shredded.
Well, your fate is Bruce Arians, so I wouldn't be confident.
Okay, well, you know what? Bruce Arians has won 2 straight. Actually, no, not Bruce Arians. Tom Brady and his team won 2 straight road playoff games. And if you try playing zone coverage against Brady and see what happens.
No, so hopefully he's not. I mean, think about it. Matt LaFleur outcoached Sean McVay. He beat Sean McVay at his game, who is probably arguably the future of NFL head coaches. He really is. He's the super analytical guru who came into the NFL, and Matt LaFleur is a product of Sean McVay. Same with Kyle Shanahan. Like half the coaches right now, Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, half the head coaches are products of the Sean McVay. So I don't think Bruce Arians will be able to game plan against, like you said, it's just a coaching advantage too, especially with the coach to quarterback relationship that Rodgers has with LaFleur. He didn't have it last year. He ignored LaFleur's play calls and just did what he wanted to do last year. And that's why every single game they had last week was either a miracle win or just they got blown out. There's nothing in between. Every single game, even against a bad team like Detroit, there was nothing in between. All right. Well, I think we're going to have to tune in to see these 2 games. It's going to be a lot of fun football on Sunday to watch. But before we end the show, I want to talk about one more topic. I want to talk a little bit about NBA. And there was a blockbuster trade that went through about, I think it was a week and a couple days ago, that sent James Harden, the all-star future Hall of Famer. I can think he's a future Hall of Famer, from the Houston Rockets to the Brooklyn Nets to join with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Then the Nets got rid of Jared Allen. They got rid of Karis LeVert. The Pacers also got involved in sending off Oladipo. So I have a bunch of questions that go along with this topic. The first one is which team won this trade? Of the Pacers, the Rockets, the Nets, and will these Nets make the finals, or will they even win the finals? Let's start with Josh. Josh, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to answer your second question first if I can. It's that they will not make the finals, and they will clearly not win the finals if they don't make the finals. The team that ended up the best in this, I think time's going to tell on that. It might actually end up being the Rockets just because they got a big haul, and that'll develop over time. One quick note here on super teams, and sometimes they work if there are complementary pieces. These three guys are your bona fide, I need the ball scorers. There don't seem to be enough points to go around. And last night is an example, if there ever was one. You go to double overtime against Cleveland, but you lose the game despite scoring 137 points or whatever it is with your three superstars. The party was slightly ruined, and Colin Sexton has a lot to do with that. My thought about what's going to happen with this team, it's going to look good at times. They're going to be like, oh, they're amazing. They won by 30 points. And then they're going to start kind of yapping. And then somebody's going to get a little unhappy. And so I do not think this team is going to be good in the long haul. That's my take.
Kyle, what do you think?
So, well, I agree with Josh. I think it's going to be Houston who wins the trade because, now they have John Wall. You throw Oladipo in there. Still got Boogie Cousins. Christian Wood looks like he's on the rise. I think they're going to have a pretty good team down there. But also, mainly the second question, I just don't see this working. I mean, like Josh said, you have three bona fide I need the ball scorers. And let's see. You know what? I'm going to give it 2 weeks before Kyrie Irving starts throwing an absolute pissy fit about being the third option on his team. We already know how toxic he is. I just think he is a raging a-hole, if you want to say that. And it's just, and when it comes to, it's speaking of that Cleveland game, I'm just going to point out some numbers. Kevin Durant had 38 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Harden had a 21-point triple-double. Kyrie Irving had 37. Jeff Green had 16. They lost by 12 to the Cleveland Cavaliers, despite having all those numbers. And it's just, they made that Cavs team look like the Warriors with KD, Clay, Steph, and all those guys. And it's just, if you have no defense, it doesn't matter how good your scores are if you can't defend anybody. And when it comes to, these super teams like this just don't work. When you have too many, I need the ball. If they're going to play with two basketballs, fine, they're going to make the finals. But, DeAndre Jordan is as old as dirt. How long has he been around? Like, they also don't really have much big guys either. They gave up their entire bench for James Harden, gave up LeVert, who I think looks like a future all-star. Jared Allen probably had a revenge game against them the other day. I think he's legit, and I thought he was going to be a big piece of their team this year. And now they're both gone. Prince is also gone. They started some guy named like Luau Cabaret or something. Like, I don't know who that guy is, but it's not going to be good enough when you have too many scorers, not enough defenders, and no bench. It's a perfect recipe for disaster. And I could totally see Kyrie Irving getting moved at the trade deadline if he's unhappy.
Ayush, what do you think?
I agree with you guys. I don't think they're going to make the finals mostly because of Kyrie Irving. Before he was there, Harden and KD went and beat the Bucks by themselves, and then Kyrie comes back. Colin Sexton has 20 straight points in overtime for the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is insane. Sadie Osman had, I think, 22, and there's no defense on that team. And then I think it might just be Kyrie, being Kyrie. It happened in Boston a couple years ago. They make the conference championship without him. He comes back. They complete meltdown against Milwaukee in the second round of the playoffs. And, as a Celtics fan, I obviously don't like Kyrie. And I would love to see a Celtics-Bucks Eastern Conference Finals where we just, blow them out of the stadium or the court.
Oh, we're going to get waxed if that happens.
I would love to see us just, beat Kyrie. I think the Celtics should be motivated after last year's disappointing playoff losses. I think they should come out of the East this year. I think they're a better team than Milwaukee, and if they play at the best level. But I don't think the Nets are going to be a big factor in the playoffs. I think they would lose to a team like Milwaukee, maybe even Miami if Miami can start getting going.
No, I'm going to do something that Kyle loves to do. I'm going to twist my own question, something that Kyle's been known to do on this show. I think that the Nets not only will get rid of Kyrie Irving, and when they do, I think they go on and win the finals, because without Kyrie Irving, there is nothing stopping that team. Just Harden and Durant by themselves. Durant's not the type of player that's going to be selfish and shoot every shot. He's going to be able to give it to Harden, get the rebound, and create a good shot opportunity for one of those two people. You take out Kyrie Irving from that equation, so much toxicity is left. Steve Nash can coach just normally, and they could easily go and beat Boston. They already did, and that was with Kyrie, and Harden's just better than Kyrie Irving in my opinion. And they already beat the Bucks, which they will do again, and there's no team in the East that's going to stop him. And I don't trust LeBron. I do not trust LeBron to go and beat KD and James Harden. I don't just trust him, because the thing that the Lakers don't have is a consistent three-point shooter. What do you think James Harden is? And Joe Harris too. Joe Harris is a incredible three-point shooter. But if Kyrie Irving stays on that team is going to be not only a really disappointing loss in the playoffs, it's going to be humiliating, and Kyrie Irving is going to find a way out of it, because he's not going to be able to stand losing in the playoffs with that type of team.
Kyrie's also already started with a weird pre-game against Boston. He had like a sage burning or something, whatever that
he's
was.
Such a weirdo.
And then he kind of just like disappears from the team for 2 weeks, and then he comes back into the Cavs a couple days ago. But like he just left the team for personal reasons.
It was because he had to have a sister's birthday party.
Yeah, even that, like
tool bag.
Even that, like you don't need to go to. It's your sister's birthday, sure, but like, you don't need to go to a party where there's more than the legal amount of people. I mean, you should be smarter than that. And like, even if you're gonna go, you should at least try not to get caught rather than just be put on camera and then posted on social media. Like, if you're at least be smart about what you're doing. He's just, I don't know. He's been crazy since he left Cleveland.
Well, Kyrie is he makes things very complicated, but I don't know whether they are as complicated as he makes them. You know, I think that's just sort of a big part of him. He likes to pretend everything is all this kinds of, ethereal and, a lot of theoretical and the smartest guy in the room stuff. But I think it's an act. I think it's a big show. But I want to ask you this, Mika. Who is going to take Kyrie? I mean, you're saying that maybe he wouldn't be on that team. What team wants to add Kyrie to that locker room? Because we clearly know about his talent on the court. There's no arguing that. But who wants him? Who would take him on?
One player who definitely I know can handle Kyrie Irving is the player that Kyrie Irving wanted to get away from, the person that he was afraid of playing with, Mr. LeBron James. Because, I mean, think about how well they worked in Cleveland. I don't think it's going to happen in Los Angeles, but if by say he goes to the Lakers, they don't have a starting point guard. They have Dennis Schroeder, and they don't really have, again, they don't have a consistent shooter on their team. They have LeBron and they have Anthony Davis. If LeBron could turn Kyrie into what Kyrie is, that was in Cleveland. He didn't become who Kyrie is in Boston. If he could do it again, I don't know why he wouldn't. I think LeBron by himself as a head coach is a leader of a team that can turn anybody into anything. Kevin Durant isn't LeBron James. They're different people. If you put Michael Jordan with Kyrie Irving, I trust Kyrie Irving because Michael Jordan can whip him into shape. Other than Lakers, it gets a little thinned out. Like, then you look for a team that either really desperately needs a point guard or is the Knicks. I don't know. Maybe the Knicks is the Knicks.
I think the Knicks would because the Knicks would. I mean, you can go. Is it me? Oh, the Knicks. I think just because of the fact that they just want a superstar. It's New York. They want to sell it. They can't sell it obviously, but I mean they traded for Carmelo. I mean they didn't really there's no point in that. That turned out to be like a lose-lose trade. They gave up a lot for I think one Eastern Conference Finals appearance, and I don't think they made the playoffs a lot. And I think that James Dolan would have no problem giving up like Julius Randle or an RJ Barrett and a couple picks for Kyrie Irving. I mean, he's obviously not the brightest owner, and I think he's prone to make stupid decisions. So I think the Knicks would definitely be a place for Kyrie.
You know who I think could trade for him? The Clippers. I think they could trade for him because I don't think they really have Patrick Beverley is kind of a nut job in my opinion. I don't really think he's too good either. I think he's the exact type of person who, let's say we're driving in a big SUV. Let's just say that. Let's pretend that I'm in the driver's seat. Let's pretend Ayush is Patrick Beverley. We're going to be the cool kids, but then Ayush is a guy just screaming out the window in the back, just going along with the ride, yelling at girls, trying to get their attention. That's Patrick Beverley on the big bandwagon of the Clippers, trying to get everybody's attention, and he's not very good. Kyrie would, I think he. No, this is just so he's not nutcase Kyrie, if that's even possible. God knows that's not possible. But if he somehow whipped it together, him and Kawhi would be great. But yeah.
Josh, what do you think? Because you asked the question. I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, so I just don't think there's anybody that would want him. I mean, if you put him on the Clippers, I think that he creates a strange dynamic with Paul George and Kawhi. I mean, those guys, first of all, you're going to have to give up some pieces for him, just, talent alone. So you wonder who would still be on those teams. I mean, if it's a Lakers trade, Dennis Schroeder is going to be, he's going to go to the Nets, right? I mean, there's going to be some guys that are not going to be there. You're probably right about the Lakers. If for some reason he gets moved, if there's anybody who could control him or make him sort of become the best of himself once more, it might actually be LeBron, just given the nature of their previous relationship. And maybe they can rekindle that. I mean, listen, we were talking about a big three before and how it doesn't work. You talk about three bona fide sort of similar overlapping scorers and Harden, Durant, and Irving. But with the Lakers, LeBron is a different element, and AD inside gives you that other dimension. So even though LeBron brings the ball up, 80% of the time, it seems like, that might be the only fit, because the Knicks is a terrible fit, by the way. I mean, then he's going to run roughshod over some young guys and do his thing there. He would do the same thing in Orlando. He would do the same thing in Chicago. He would do the same thing in Washington. I mean, there's a lot of, because, Beal's the kind of guy who might get moved at some point. You have to think about other players who might be on the move league-wide who would command a trade for somebody like Kyrie. I didn't mean to get us way off topic. I just sort of
that's fine.
out there.
For Washington, we still have Russell Westbrook, so I don't know how that's going to work with Kyrie and Russell.
That's true, too. Yeah.
They would need a center, not that.
Okay, Kevin Durant with Russell Westbrook again? No. It's hard. Bring the big toxic group back together again.
I also don't think the Clippers can even trade for Kyrie if they wanted to. I mean, they gave up a good amount of picks for George. And,
Right.
I mean, other than maybe Lou Williams, but,
It likely cost you Paul George, too.
yeah, they would have to give up
that.
Paul George probably for Kyrie.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to see how this trade plays out because, again, the NFL season is coming to the end. The Super Bowl we'll talk about later in a couple other episodes. But the NBA season is just starting to ramp up. The season's going – the first half of the season is till March, then second half, and then playoffs. So thank you, Josh, for coming on the show. We had a lot of –
My pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Josh.
We hope you guys enjoyed the episode. We'll be back next week for another episode of Unpopular Opinion. Enjoy the weekends. As always, send information to info@dsctv.com for any celebrities you want to see on the show, any jerseys you want to see on the show, or any specific questions you want us to talk about on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back here next week. I'm your host, Mika, signing off. Thank you guys for watching.